Let us travel to the end of the world scenario. The last human on Earth vanished overnight. It's now time for nature to make its triumphant return. We've reached the point where our species was extinct, whether it was due to a global epidemic, a planet-wide volcanic eruption, or a massive space rock. There is not a single person left on Earth. Even though there is no chance of humans returning, we would leave behind a lot of things: cities, highways, nuclear plants, lots of waste. It is time to find out how long it would take for the last signs of human life to vanish, and if humanity vanished from the planet, this is what would happen to Earth. We'd be leaving behind a lot of stuff: cities, highways, waste. Time to see just how long it would take for the last remaining traces of human life to disappear. 1 week after humans go extinct, nothing could possibly save your backyard garden. But with you gone for just a week, that wouldn't be the only thing at risk. For the first week, all the animals would struggle to acclimate to life without humans. Your animal friends would have to go outdoors and get food for themselves if you weren't there. You should have kept ample food for them and let the main door open, I suppose. The entire planet would soon go radioactive. The problem is that our nuclear power plants generate nuclear waste. These pools of spent nuclear fuel require ongoing water cooling. Furthermore, the water requires electricity to circulate. Nuclear power plants all throughout the world would start to lose power quickly, without people to maintain the electrical infrastructure. A deadly domino effect would follow. When cooling nuclear waste, water would halt its flow and start to boil off. By exposing the radioactive waste, this would make it flammable. The planet would be covered with radioactive compounds that are dangerous if all this garbage exploded. Very soon, because of all the radiation, ecosystems all around the world would begin to die. Many of these substances would also continue to be harmful for at least another 300 years. And some other substances, like plutonium, would continue to emit radioactive material for at least another 240,000 years. But let's not go ahead of ourselves too quickly. Let's jump to a year in the future. Once we are gone for a year or so, nature will start to recover our highways and roads. There would be moss and fungus everywhere. Home taps would be dry because there wouldn't be any water in the faucets. Since no one is present at the public water supply, the equipment that pumps water cannot be managed. This year, there wouldn't be any bird song in radiation-contaminated woodlands. However, as you moved further away from these dangerous locations, animal populations grew rapidly, because there would be no people any longer to hunt them or drive them from their natural habitats. Without insecticides, insects would multiply more quickly and take over the planet. Additionally, all creatures, including rats and reptiles, would have access to a lot more food as a result. The roadways would start to sway as soon as the Earth experiences its first winter. Water from melted snow would seep into the gaps as a result of all the freezing and defrosting. Every time a tree drops a seed in these broken, deserted alleys, a tiny sapling might sprout. Nobody would be present to cut it down or pull it out. It would produce new plants and cover the sunlight, giving birth to a world of new microorganisms thriving on nuclear waste. Weeds like shamrock and mustard would be present all over the surface. Grass will cover them all in a couple more years. 50 years later, the once crowded cities would undergo significant changes. There would be a lot of subterranean activity in New York City. The Brandenburg Gate in Berlin would be encircled by trees. The Taj Mahal would be covered in moss. Young trees would be sprouting in Times Square in Manhattan. As time passes, the rubbish that the sea expels will cause beaches to become unclean. Buildings would begin to fall apart. In big cities, falling glass from deteriorating buildings would cover the streets. However, compared to today, the air visibility will be 10 times greater. Steel pillars that supported the streets above would sway, creating streams between Wall Street and Park Avenue. Your neighborhood and abandoned home would both be in poor condition. 150 years later, all of those towers would collapse into enormous mounds of debris. Grand Central Station in New York and similar stone structures would remain standing even if the city was inundated. Famous pieces of art wouldn't be as fortunate. The conditions in museum vaults would be less favorable without power and climate control. However, In bank vaults that would never be opened, all of your now worthless money would still remain secure. Mold would cover everything as a result of the water leak. Ironically, pottery from 1,000 years ago would still exist today, exactly like fossils. 500 years later, where your home previously stood will presently be covered by a forest 500 years from now. But many of your aluminum appliances and stainless steel kitchenware may still be buried in the ground. Sadly, they wouldn't have you around to make any delicious meals with. Temperatures would fall everywhere as each stretch of dark asphalt was replaced with greenery. As the atmosphere continues to recover, drastic climate changes will occur. There would be less carbon dioxide in the atmosphere if there were no humans. By this time, the initial increase in animal populations that followed our disappearance would have peaked. Predators like hyenas and wolves would once more prowl Asia, Africa, and Europe in groups, hunting for food. 1,000 years later, the world you remember would still be dimly recognizable after 1,000 years, depending on the materials they were created of, the environment they are in, and just simple chance certain items would continue to exist. A movie theater here, an apartment complex there, or a dilapidated retail center would serve as memorials to a long-gone culture. Even though the Roman Empire was destroyed more than 1,500 years ago, certain remains may still be seen today. The Burj Khalifa would now merely be a structure of steel with all its glass exterior eroded or broken over the time with no maintenance. Let's fast forward to 1 million years later. How far into the future, if at all, would human civilization still exist? There would be substantial rock erosion. Well, the faces of prior American presidents would still be visible in Mount Rushmore's granite. There won't be many facial characteristics, though. There would also be some fragments of the Great Pyramid of Giza in Egypt and the Great Wall of China. But as time marched on, none would be identifiable as the once impossible wonders of the globe. 5 billion years later, at this moment, the sun would eat all that mankind had left on Earth as it expanded and obliterated the world. However, there may still be human footprints to be found if you're concerned about humans vanishing into thin air. There is a possibility that some extraterrestrial culture may be able to locate the Voyager spacecraft outside of our galaxy by then. They may discover that there previously was human life on Earth. But is it really worthwhile for us to imagine what our world might be like without humans? On the one hand, we could simply find solace in the idea that our world will survive and eventually prosper without us for millions of years. On the other hand, it is a sad fact that many individuals avoid reading about environmental issues because they feel awful about the harm that humans are causing to the environment and how this is hastening the end of humanity. However, getting a peek of this hypothetical future could also make us more conscientious of what we do in an effort to protect not only the world, but also our own place on it. Please do share your thoughts in the comment section and subscribe to our channel, The Mankind, where humanity is explored. We'll see you soon in another